From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hutchavandi.
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, Renegade Express mailbag. We get deep. We talk about our fears. What do we fear this upcoming season? What assistant coach do we fear possibly losing? And then private equity and capital getting involved in college sports. And we're generating discussion sparked by Cummins. Wake Up Warchant presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Go check it out, everybody. Daily lunch specials, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Only $8.99 for delicious entrees with a side dish of your choosing. Have it your way. That once was the slogan of another establishment, but not nearly as great and as refined as the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. cptallybar.com, the website. Live music this weekend, we assume, Corey? Probably, yeah, rocking and rolling?
Sure. Go ahead and go out there. They might be live music, might not be. Who can know? Who can know?
But everything's going to be all right because you're at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
Correct. And they will have, even if you're there at 11 today, getting there early, getting your lunch special on early, they will have the Florida State baseball game on for you.
Nice.
I guarantee you go into 95% of the other restaurants, even places that call themselves sports bars in the Tallahassee. You're going to have to ask, hey, can you put the Florida State baseball game on? Yeah. What channel is that on? I don't know if we get the ACC network. That's conversations happening all over the city, but not at Corner Pocket. It's locked and loaded, ready for you.
Warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole sports source. Once you subscribe, get all the access that you need when it comes to your favorite football team, recruiting, team coverage, everything in between. Warchant.com. Thumbs up, 5-star rating review as well, please. Myself, Corey Clark, we do the show regularly. Thanks for being here, everybody. Corey, how are you?
Good, buddy. Good. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. I do appreciate it.
You back in the A for Memorial Day?
Yeah. I'm going to be here until going to come back Monday night, do headlines, and then scamper on over to Jacksonville for Dave Matthews.
Ooh.
No, that's not my choice. The wife has seen him, I would guess
39 times?
It's over. I think it's around 50 now.
Good God.
She's seen him, I would say 12, 13 times since we've known each other.
Okay.
So yeah, she's going over there, going with a friend on Tuesday night. I might have to go on Wednesday night. And look, I don't dislike Dave Matthews. I went to a Dave Matthews, 2 of them, before I even met Stephanie. It's just, it's not my cup of tea anymore. It's just a bunch of chicken dancing and having one song last 13 minutes as they jam, quote unquote. It's like it has the feel of like a a Grateful Dead show back in the day. And it's just not my vibe. It's not my cup of tea, but it's whatever. We do things for our significant others, don't we, Aslan?
Yeah.
So either way, she's going to go see him on Tuesday night and Wednesday night because he's going to play different songs, Aslan. You understand? Different songs, so she wants to see both.
Sounds like you've got your ball, you've got your chain tied to me, tie me up again.
Yeah, that he won't play that. That's the one song I'd want to hear, biggest hit, but he doesn't play it because he doesn't like that it reminds him of like a 20-year-old perv, which is I guess what he was when he wrote it. And he doesn't want to sing that song because he's not that guy anymore. It's like, buddy, the Beatles still sang. That's not a great example. I was going to say they still sang Love Me Do, but they stopped touring in 4 years after they started. So, yeah, but I guarantee you Billy Joel doesn't like to play Piano Man. That was 60 years ago he wrote that song. I bet he still does, though. Bet he still does because he cares about his fans and Dave Matthews doesn't.
All right. Let's bust some myths. Or maybe just give more fuel to conspiracies. Let's start off the Renegade Express mailbag with wine and cheese. In regards to Jaden Rashada's lawsuit, go Gator. As for Miami, they can go take a long walk off a short cliff. It is my implicit bias, or rather, is it my implicit bias, or when those two programs falter or embarrass themselves, the suits at ESPN harp and or care way less than when somebody at FSU, say, gets shoes at Foot Locker. Shoes at Foot Locker.
That's old school. That's an old school Florida State scandal. That's from the 1994. Or you could say close at Dillard's. You could say, what happened in 2013. Obviously,
crab
much
legs.
more. No, I was talking about the much more serious allegation than him stealing some crab legs from Publix. Or was it Publix? Was it? I think it was. Like Winn-Dixie. Was it? I thought it was Winn-Dixie. Winn-Dixie would have let that slide.
Yeah, man, Winn-Dixie ain't bougie about that kind of stuff.
Take what you want, Jameis. Yeah. Take what you want. It's hard to say. It seems like that, I'm sure. And I'll be honest, it kind of seems that way with me a little bit. But 30 years ago, it was a different media landscape. I don't know that this is I don't know. I get what you're saying. Sports Illustrated did have an article, a cover story about Miami that they should drop football, and that happened after Foot Locker. So Miami got it too. Florida, they didn't get nearly what they deserved during the Urban years. They just didn't. You can say that's because of some of the national writers that might have covered that went to Florida. However you want to frame it or phrase it, they didn't get nearly the microscope that they needed to get because all anybody talked about was the quarterback. So nobody talked about all the other bad things that were going on campus that was well known in the city and on campus. It just kind of brushed under the rug. I don't know if that's an ESPN thing or just a overall media bias. I don't know.
I saw something on Twitter, like a Dallas Mavericks blog account was upset that ESPN was not talking about the Mavs heading into game one. They obviously won game one on Wednesday night, but they're like, they had like screenshots of ESPN.com and I think of Get Up and First Take. And they're like, oh yeah, ESPN certainly doesn't want to mess with Dallas and Texas at all. Zero pub about our Mavs. And I was like, ooh, I need to save this and put it in my back pocket. So the next time someone's like, oh, ESPN's got it out for Florida State, I can be like, it's not just us. Like everybody thinks they get slighted in these sort of instances. Obviously not as major. I think
there are Alabama fans that probably feel like they get slighted by ESPN. Yeah. And you guys are laughing, but that's how delusional fandom can be. Yeah. There are Alabama fans that feel like they don't get a fair shake from ESPN. As laughable as that is. It's all about perspective, and we all live in a vacuum. We're the only program we care about. We're very, very sensitive to every little thing, every little arrow, and we don't notice the other arrows going everywhere. I will say it didn't feel like it's the truth. The whole Jameis Winston situation that included BB gun gate and everything that came after that, to me, got, I would guess, 150% more attention than what happened at Baylor.
Yeah.
So,
no, you ain't wrong, buddy.
But it's wrong. Florida State. I mean, that comes with the territory, right? Jameis Winston was the most famous college football player in the country, and Florida State was the best team in the country and the national champion. So, it's going to get more eyes on it. It's going to get more attention. But, yes, it can seem unfair at times, I'm sure.
Well, what about North Carolina and their academic fraud scandal? That seemed to not have been that big of a deal.
Nope, it wasn't.
We could sit here all day.
Yeah.
Not saying this in a judgment tinged tone, but our guy KnoxNole04 posted 3 separate questions and 3 separate replies at 12:12 a.m., 1:16 a.m., and 3:09 a.m.
Okay, all right. I see what's going on.
We love it, man. This is the one that I'll give out to you, Corey, because Corey helped me out here. He says, I know with all your vast knowledge of FSU sports history, you know all the moments that knocked the Noles out of competition for a national championship. KnoxNole04 says, is FSU cursed in regards to winning national titles? I know they've got 3 in football, but really, how many should they have? Wide right, wide left. 96, you lose a national title to a Mulligan Gator team. 98, Winky's neck gets hurt. 2000, how do you only score 2 points? It seems like under Bobby's dynasty, there was always just a bad game or a key injury suspension that cost Florida State. There was 2 in 87, 3 in 88, 3 in 89, or I don't know. He's got parentheses next to all these years. I don't know if he means specific plays or players went down. But I imagine how many of the titles the Noles would have if the playoff had been in effect during the dynasty. Also, Randy Moss as well. Then you think about baseball, never winning one. What do you think, Corey? Is Florida State cursed in regards to winning national championships?
No, you can't say that when you have three of them, right? That
3 in
goes against the
football,
very
3 in
nature.
soccer, 1 in softball the last 7 years.
Don't they have 4 in soccer?
4, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think there are 4 now. They have 3 in softball. If you go back to the early '80s, they have. Some
I'm not
track
going
and
back to
field.
the early days. We're not doing
I know
that on
you're
the
not.
show.
You're a fast pitch guy through and through. I got you. But I think that was slow pitch back then. I could be wrong. How crazy is that? Oh, you little girls want to play a sport? Well, here, we'll give you this big, huge ball and soft it up, throw it up like a cloud, and see if you can hit it when it comes down. Won't that be fun for you? Like, how crazy that is compared to where we are now, where it's like, oh, yeah, women are great athletes. Yeah. This is crazy. They used to play 3-on-3 basketball, Aslan. College used to play 3-on-3 basketball. Anyway, I'll get off that soapbox, but it is I love the strides that women athletics have made. We should be transparent that we're recording this before the softball team played, so I have no idea how that went tonight, or on Thursday. Hopefully they pulled off the big stunner against the Sooners. But going back to the question, I don't think you could say you're cursed when you've won 3 of them. Now, look, man, think about you could say you're cursed. Well, Miami lost the game in '88. They lost the national championship in 1988. I think it was '88. They lost to Notre Dame on a game they dominated, and they lost when they went for 2 and didn't get it, just like Florida State did the year before. They also scored a touchdown, but it was ruled a fumble going into the end zone. And they didn't have, obviously, replay in 1988. It was Cleveland Gary. He scores. It's obvious. They don't have replay. Notre Dame recovers it in the end zone, gets the ball at the 20. They end up winning the game. And you could go, I think Miami's lost a couple. Oh, and then the Ohio State game in overtime.
Yeah.
I mean, those are 2 all-time gut-wrenching losses. The point being, if you're good enough and then you play enough important games, you're always going to feel a little bit cursed. Maybe not a Bulls fan, but other than like a Chicago Bulls fan, you're always going to feel like there's some level of curse. And then what's funny is like somebody like Red Sox fans, that their whole life, guys my age, grew up their whole lives thinking they were cursed. And now almost any time they get in the postseason, they go ahead and win the whole thing. Yeah. It's just the whole thing flips. So, yes, there have been some unlucky, unfortunate losses, but I wouldn't say you can – like, again, if you won it 3 times, you're not cursed. But, yes, if they had a playoff back then, they probably have twice as many national titles.
Yeah. Sadly, though, I feel like the Gators really haven't experienced what Florida State and Miami have experienced, like – kind of getting hosed on bad calls in games and gut-wrenching loss. Like their first national title was a mulligan. Like they shouldn't have been there. But Nebraska doesn't know how to stop 4th and 1 against Texas, I
know. That was ridiculous. What happens if – that's true, but then Florida State got a 93 national title because Boston College beat Notre Dame on a last-second field goal. A ball that was horribly kicked, but it looks like it's going to hook off the screen. I would tell everybody that doesn't know about it, go Google David Gordon, Boston College, Notre Dame. He kicks a 41-yarder to win the game, to knock off Notre Dame the week after Notre Dame had beaten Florida State in the game of the century. And that kick looks like it is going straight right off the screen and then somehow unbelievably evens up and goes right down the middle. I've never seen a kick do that before or since. But, yeah, Florida
and every time they made it to the BCS game under Urban, they took care of business.
Yeah, you're right. And I was trying to think, like, where were they and maybe we can look this up while we're doing other questions. When the kid threw the shoe against LSU in 2020, that basically cost them the game, right? Didn't LSU end up winning somehow because he did that? Yeah. Weren't they really good in 2020 and maybe could have gotten into the playoff if they had won that game?
I think this was like part of that losing streak that year. I think that it kind of accelerated. Actually, it was the first. There was a second loss there. They lost to Jimbo in College Station because they were crying about A&M didn't follow COVID protocols and had a whole bunch of people in their stadium.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, then they lost to LSU, and then they lost to Bama in the SEC championship game, and then everybody quit.
Right. So I think if they had beaten Bama, then they may have
a shot
to be in the playoff. Yeah,
they were number 6 in the country playing LSU that year.
And definitely, if they'd have beaten LSU and then beaten Bama, they absolutely would have been in the playoff that year. They had a really good offense. Last time you could say that about Florida. And the first time in a long time you could have said that about Florida. I'm trying to think of, like, in Spurrier's years, like, every time they lost to Florida State, I feel like
Chokadoke, that didn't affect them, did it?
No, I was going to say they still wouldn't have played for the national championship. I don't think. I'm trying to think. I think they had already had a loss every time they played Florida State in the 90s, except for 95 and 96, and Florida State did hand them the loss in 96, only to have to play them again a month later. Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. It didn't happen to Florida much.
But they're pretty lousy for the last, 15 years now?
And also think about what they did in basketball. Like, they won the 2 national titles. That's never going to go away. But they also had a lot of really good teams after that, especially in the immediate aftermath. And I feel like they kept losing the Elite Eight. I think they made the Final Four one year and lost.
Really?
So, yeah, they've had some bad luck. Again, it just goes back to the overall point. If you give yourself enough chances, if you're good enough, you are going to have some heartbreaking losses.
Knox Noll also is letting everybody know that he making everybody aware of the Jefferson Epps Trophy, that Florida State plays Virginia in an official rivalry game, and there's a trophy up for grabs.
Yep.
And also turquoise jersey spring game. Do we completely embrace them with some possible color combination tweaks, or were the anti-turquoise crowd correct? I would have loved to seen the turquoise on gold pants, but they were wearing garnet pants. I don't like that look. They're going to wear turquoise. They got to go gold helmet, gold pants. Final answer.
Okay. I mean, I would be cool if they never wore them again. Leave it to basketball. I think they look good as basketball jerseys. I also think you have one of the most recognizable, most iconic jerseys in the history of the sport, and certainly in the current landscape of the sport. Just roll with it. You don't have to be Oregon.
Old dads and old wake up. Which would you rather happen first? A, paying players going away or it being capped, or B, limiting transfers to only one time? Cheers to the best, old dad. Ooh. It's a good one. Yeah,
I would think probably the transfers, only because there's no way to really police the first one. Who's capping it? And who's doing the investigations to see how much money is in so-and-so's bank account and where it came from? Just give them a $1,000 handshake at Gordo's. Sorry, not Gordo's, at Corner Pocket. By the way, Florida State football players, if you're listening, that's where you go to get your $1,000 handshakes.
That's right.
Get your butt to Corner Pocket.
That's right.
There's people there willing to just pay you money.
Cash.
So I would say the first one, but the second one. Yeah, I think the second one, because it's much more enforceable, and it adds more. I think it adds more stability to the sport. If you know, like, okay, Marvin Jones Jr. can't go anywhere again. He can't. So he made a decision. This was a 1-year or 2-year commitment, but he made a decision. He cannot then, if he doesn't like his playing time on August 18th, say, you know what, I want to go back to Georgia. Right now, by rules, he could. Yeah. He can't do that now.
I don't know. Could you imagine if Marvin Jones would have left after the spring game? Just be like, just wasn't feeling it.
Right.
I want to leave again.
Did Miami just get that kid from Louisville that did that? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that would be I would love to see that. Because, again, you can cap it. Let's say you cap NIL money for and I don't know how that would even be constitutional, honestly. But if you cap, because they're not employees like NBA players where they do have salary caps. But if you cap it at, say, you can only pay your players a total of $5 million or $10 million, pick a number, $100 million. You never know what that guy's going to be getting on the side. So there still can be enticements for that person to stay that aren't officially on the books. But transferring is officially on the books. You're either on the team or you're not. You've transferred. Okay, now you cannot do it again. So make sure you want to do this before you leave.
Let's combine these two. Baby Knoll? BBY? I think that's what the kids use to call each other baby. BBY Knoll.
All right.
Wake up! Is private equity the way to go? Looks to me that they will eventually run your athletic department, hire and fire coaches and such. A great revenue stream, yes, but at what cost? Armchair Osceola says he's glad that I survived my sailing expedition, thank you. He's headed to Spain for a little hiking, beach excursion. Okay. Hopes to have a successful adventure as I had myself. Which, if you count almost dying, well, then I hope that doesn't happen to you, buddy. But yeah, man, go to Mallorca if you can. Give me your Venmo. I'll give you like $50 to catch the ferry out there or something. I want to go to Mallorca. Anyhow, regarding the investment group headed up by our own alumnus, Drew Weatherford, what are your thoughts? I read the article by Ross Dellinger regarding stipulations and conditions. I have to say it left more questions than answers. Cash infusions of $50 to $200 million with no operators brought in by the investment firm. The investment is described to be used alongside bonds, endowment funds, but it's revenue share and not debt, ? I get it's an equity investment, but some of the stipulations or lack thereof are interesting to say the least. I'm sure it's well thought out, but I get the feeling if we weren't thrilled about how the cash grab is changing college football now, we'll like it even less once all these programs are operated explicitly as revenue-generating vehicles. Anyways, drink your vitamin energy, fire up your Cummins generator, and go Noles. Now, I did some research on this stuff, Corey, unless you got a thought. I'll let you know.
No, go for it.
So there's a difference between private equity and like private capital. So this would be private capital. Private equity is, yes, like they would then take a controlling interest of your organization. But this seems to kind of be a creative vehicle for short-term cash infusions for, let's say, Virginia Tech maybe, or like, I guess let's use Boston College, for example. So how this would work, Corey, Dellinger was talking about this because he actually spoke to Drew Weatherford, and Drew Weatherford gave him the whole pitch deck and everything. So you would get like $50 million if you're Boston College, let's say, and you're going to pay them back over the course of 10 years. Well, it works that the way they get their money back, Drew Weatherford and his equity partners, Redbird, who's like the real main underwriter of this, and they have controlling stakes in like an F1 team, Alpine. They also have like part of the Fenway Sports Group they own. So like they're well versed in this sort of stuff. You would pay them back on your growth that you would get. So it wouldn't necessarily be like the revenue or the profit that you brought in, but it would be whatever the growth that you have incurred, I think profit-wise, they would get like 22% of it up until the point where they receive their money back. And then after that, like it would kind of stipulate it would go a little bit lower. So they would make some money, obviously. They're not just in this to get their money back, but like over 10 years, they're thinking, I don't know if they would invest in Boston College because they might not think they're going to get enough return on it, but they would give, let's just say Florida State, $50 million. All right. And then whatever Florida State's growth is and their budget and their profit margin, they would get 22% of that for like the first 5 years or up until they get their $50 million back. And then the remaining part of the contract, they would get between like 12 and 5%. That way they then get a little bit, of their a gain, if you will, because it is an investment vehicle for them to get money. They would not have any controlling interest in the university, but they would obviously partner up and be buddy-buddy with your university president and your athletic director, and there might be some sort of kickbacks that we're not going to be aware of that would kind of grease the skids on. But it sounds gross because you think of private equity, private capital investment into a educational, scholastic, student-athlete college experience, amateurism that we've kind of gone and pretended for so long. But it does almost seem like a pretty cool setup because Drew, what he said was, we're in a period right now, Corey, where there's really only 10 or 12 teams that legitimately have a chance to win a national title. Drew's like, I don't like that. I think it should be 40 to 50 teams. And by having this sort of option available to those kind of schools that might be in between, like West Virginia perhaps or something like that, it brings more people to the table that have a chance to win and compete for a national title.
All right. Sounds good. I'm not smart enough to get – I'm glad you did all that research, man.
Yeah, which, by the way, guys, can we not make me have to like listen to an hour-long podcast to answer a question on the fun Renegade Express mailbag?
I'm glad you did it. That was informational. That's what we're all about here.
Yeah,
we're educational, informational, and I hope a little bit inspirational. But, yeah, I think all of this again, man, it's like what's so crazy about it, Aslan, is for some reason the Green Bay Packers don't need an influx of capital money to pay their roster. You know what I mean?
Right.
They get a lot of money from the league they're in. And the league they're in has a huge TV contract that pays all these organizations the exact same amount of money and gives them a cap, and they get to spend the money however they want as long as they stay under that cap. Meanwhile, this crazy sport, listen to what Aslan just talked about for 3 minutes. I mean, that's where we are, that's how, like, number one, it's always been it's been about 10 to 12 schools that compete for national championships, well before NIL and I mean, how many teams have won a national championship since integration?
No.
12, maybe. BYU doesn't count. That was a ridiculous year. That was so stupid. Yeah. So I don't know, man. Like, I guess that shows how bizarre this current landscape is. That's the third time I've used that word for this sport right now. But at the end of the day, man, they've got to get it where the players are just getting you're paying the players with a share of the TV contract.
Which is going to happen, yeah.
Correct. And then the NILs will be legitimate NILs. It's like I'm trying to think of we'll say LeBron. Okay, LeBron makes $40 million playing for the Lakers. I don't know, he might make $52 million. That's probably what, Aslan, only about a half of the money he makes?
Yeah.
Because of the Gatorade does he do Gatorade or is that
Nike? He does Tonal, home gym, and he does.
He has podcasts that make money.
Taco Bell now with Jason Sudeikis. Yeah.
By the way, everybody gives the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren the "What a Pro Wants" commercial a lot of grief, and with good reason because it's horrible. But those LeBron, Jason Sudeikis commercials are ridiculously bad.
I like them.
The one where they're acting like they're in a sitcom?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man, from the 80s. And then also there was one where it was just Sudeikis, apparently surprising this guy that had tweeted out that he likes eating Taco Bell at 2 a.m., and then he surprises him in the mall at 10 a.m. But all the guy does is look up and smile, and that's the end of the commercial.
Yeah.
There's no content. It's just dumb. It all looks like a set. None of those. They're not. The Taco Bell Sudeikis commercials aren't doing it for me. But the point being, so if we'll factor back to Jordan Travis. Let's say last year Jordan Travis was getting $900,000 from the TV revenue. Well, that doesn't limit what he can make as a Florida State football player. He can still go do those car ads, or he can still do ads for Warchant or whatever he wants to do. He's not limited. But it also levels the playing field in the sense that most of these players don't have the star power enough to actually get paid NIL money, if we're being truthful.
Yeah.
There's 8 guys on the Florida State roster that could walk into some places in Tallahassee and everybody knows who they are. There's not, and that's Florida State. Tallahassee's not a huge town. So the point being, LeBron, let's say Wembanyama. There we go. Wembanyama's a better example.
How many people are you going to use this? Go from LeBron to Jordan Travis.
No, I didn't like any of those comparisons. Wembanyama is a better comparison because he's making the rookie minimum for the number 1 pick, which is still a ton of money. But let's say he's making, I have no idea, $10 million this year. Well, that's probably a third of what he will make, maybe a tenth of what he will make in endorsements. But those are endorsements he earned. And I don't think anybody listening to this show most people don't have a problem with these college football players making money that they earned on their image and likeness because they are badass football players and they are star players that people know. What we do have a problem with is the transfers that have done nothing in college, or the high school players that have done nothing in college, period. They haven't even been in college, that are you're having these bidding wars for. That's what they become, is bidding wars. And it should be more like, okay, you're at our school, you're on our program. You did great last year as REA. You're a big time player. Well, that gives you now companies want to advertise with you. That's how branding has always worked. That's how promotional stuff has always worked for these players. That's what I'd like it to get back to. And I think eventually, if they get with the just paying these players a set amount from the contracts, it becomes more like the NFL, where Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins, you can go be a great ad man for somebody, but you've earned it because you've been playing for 15 years.
Kind of also tangentially related to all this stuff, I guess the business of college sports. I'm going to give you guys some good news, bad news, I guess, that I gleaned from all this, Corey. Or gleaned, rather, sorry.
Okay.
So the good news is, with this revenue sharing model, it's all coming from the House settlement, obviously, where players want back pay for not being able to capitalize on NIL, and everybody's agreeing to it. They're like, all right, well, like the last 4 years, if you were a student athlete, we're going to go ahead and compensate you for lost NIL opportunities, and it's going to be like nearly $3 billion, right?
Right.
Well, the NCAA, like the entity in Indianapolis, they're going to cover a pretty big portion of it. I think something like a billion, like $1.1 billion of it, which this prevents in a roundabout way this Super League stuff from happening, right? Because right now, these Power 5 conferences, it's like, all right, we'll stick around for at least like the next 10 years while we pay this settlement out because the NCAA is going to handle $1 billion is going to be coming off, their books and not collectively all of ours. The remaining money, $664 million, is going to be coming from the Power 5 conferences. And then the other 27 non-Power 5 conferences are going to pay the other $990 million of this.
Yeah.
The bad news is apparently the model they use to figure out who owes what, Corey, is since the NCAA is having to foot the bill on this largely, they're using the model of how they gain revenue, which is the NCAA basketball tournament. They're using that model of revenue distribution in determining who has to then pay this money to the settlement that's going on, which means, believe it or not, since the ACC has been so great at basketball the last 4 or 5 years, which is the time window they're using to pay back these student athletes, the ACC is actually going to end up spending more money and paying more money into this than the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yep.
So the one good redeeming thing about this conference turns up hurting you in the long run.
Yeah, and I didn't do the math. I don't know how much Florida State will owe out of that. But every school in the ACC is obviously paying the same.
Yes.
It is funny that Florida State is paying more into that. Boston College is paying more into that than Ohio State.
Yeah.
It's just whatever, man. It's just such a – hey, man, good congratulations to Greg Sankey. He wins again.
All right, talking about all this equity and big picture stuff, and our guy Dalvinism, Corey, wants to go big picture. New playoff format. What should expectations be for the program as a whole? Should any season where we don't make the 12-team playoff be viewed as a disappointment? Should the bar not be just making it, but winning a game or two? Or is that too lofty? 5-year period, what's the realistic bar for playoff appearances, wins, championships FSU should have? I like this, Corey.
Okay.
I like it so much. I think we should turn the cameras on and we should pause and pay homage to the hum of the powerful and valuable Cummins generator, y'all. That's right. Here we go. Generating discussion brought to you by our friends over at Cummins. Follow them on Instagram, everybody. It's free. Just go to Instagram, follow Cummins Lifestyle. Noles behind the helm of all this, helping things run smoothly. So give them a little follow, give them a little shout out. It's free. Again, Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram, Corey. Our guy, Dalvinism, popping the question here right now, Corey. And it's a good one. And I just wonder how much of the human element is going to come into play. Because I get it, man. Grew up on the dynasty, so you're always in the top 4. Top 12 surely is a reasonable bar to clear. And I would say if they don't make it, it's a disappointment. If you're not one of the 12 best teams, it's a disappointment. But Corey, what if you're 10-2 and you didn't make it in over 10-2 Missouri and Ole Miss? Or do you think that you're probably not going to win it all if you're 10-2? I wonder how we should look at this. But I think just kind of gut reaction, quick flinch, I would say it is a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, I think where the program is now, it would be viewed as a disappointment. But, there are degrees of it, right? If you're the 13th team or you're the 40th team, like if you're not even in contention, if you're not even in the conversation, that is an utter disappointment. That is a big-time disappointment. If, like Aslan said, you're 10-2 and you get left out so the SEC can get their 8th team in, then that's a disappointment. But you take that you take that for what it is, and you realize that you still have a very good program that's in playoff contention. I think with the 12-team playoff, can't you start looking at it almost like NFL teams look at it at their seasons? Like if you're not even in contention for the playoffs by that final week of the season or 2 weeks of the season, you've had a bad year. And I think Florida State and I think Alabama fans would say the same thing. I think Florida fans, Ohio State, USC. If you're playing out the string in November, knowing that you're not even in the conversation, then that's a bad season. If you're playing a game that matters in late November, no matter how it goes, you're giving yourself a chance, and I feel like that's a decent way to look at it. But I don't know, man. I haven't lived through it before. Most of my life, we didn't have a playoff period.
Yeah.
Now we had a 0-team playoff. Now we have 12 teams. So it's going to be really interesting to see how all of college football fandom reacts to, there's going to be 20 to 25 teams starting November that feel like they have a realistic chance to work themselves into the playoffs. In the NFL, though, going back to probably my bad comparison, you can do the math and realize, okay, we're 5-9. We'd have to win out. These 6 teams would have to lose. We're done. But in college football, so there's probably 18 to 20 teams thinking they have a chance to make 14 in the NFL now?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. So but it's math. Like you can't. It's not subjective. It's objective. It's you have to win these games. You have to finish with this record. Here are the tiebreaker scenarios. It's all laid out for you. It's not some committee in a Ritz-Carlton on a Saturday night deciding your fate. So that's where the difference still is, where there's no real set formula. But again, if you're in consideration, if they do that stupid final college football playoff reveal the Tuesday before the championship games and you're 15th, well, you've given yourself a chance. And yes, as a Florida State fan, it should be a disappointment to not make the playoff in this current incarnation where you still have Mike Norvell as your coach. You're coming off 13-0. You're coming off a 19-game winning streak, and you have a lot of talent this year. I think it would definitely be a disappointment this year if you don't just get beset by a wave of injuries.
Yeah, and what if, it's you can be disappointed, but I don't know if we can call it a disappointment, because what if you beat Miami and Florida? But you lost to Clemson and you lost some fluke game to, I don't know, BC.
What if you keep Florida out of the playoff? What if you knock them out with that game, the last game in November?
Exactly. So, like, when it comes to baseball, Corey, like, I probably set the bar too high. I just think Florida State should go to Omaha at least once every 3 years. So in this exercise, he says 5 years. Do we want to say the Florida?
Wouldn't you say that, though, is more like for Florida State football saying they should be in the semifinals once every 3 years?
That's what I was going to kind of try to see what you thought about that. Like should we look at it more through, like he said, like a 5-year window and whether or not Florida State should have a title or like a certain amount of playoff wins in that sort of window?
The playoff wins, the titles, I'm all, and maybe it's because I'm a Braves fan, but I'm always about just giving yourself a chance. If you're in contention, if you're in the dance 4 out of 5 times, you will get lucky. You will get on a run. You will get somewhere. I remember Leonard Hamilton. They went to the NCAA tournament finally after a 10-year drought, and then lost the first game the first 2 years, and then I think maybe the next game they won 1. No, they won 2. But then you start figuring out how to win in the tournament, and I feel like that's what could happen here. Is just if you keep, like, Florida State basketball gave themselves enough opportunities getting into the tournament, then eventually they won a couple of games, and you make a Sweet 16 run, you make an Elite 8 run. That's what the goal is here. Be there. Be in the conversation. Get to the dance. You want to be a top 4 seed, but if that doesn't happen, get to the dance and give yourself a chance to go win 3 or 4 games and win a national championship. But the number one goal is instead of just worrying about the end result, I think, the number one, in whether you won a championship or not or got to the Final Four, if you keep giving yourself a chance, eventually you will get there, in my opinion. It has not happened for Florida State baseball, the final goal, but they do get to Omaha, once every 3 years if you go on their track record. So if Florida State football can get themselves into the tournament, get themselves into the contention, I don't know if there's is there a number? 3 out of 5 years, 2 out of 5 years, 5 out of 5. I don't know, but I know if you keep going every year, eventually you're going to make a run.
My bulb just blew out, so we should wrap it up. But I was going to say real quick on the way out here, Corey, 5-year window. If I told you 5 years, you either get option A, you make the playoff every single year, you get 5 playoff appearances in 5 years, or would you take 5 playoff wins over 5 years? I'm taking 5 playoff berths.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you wouldn't want. What if you get 4 in 1 year, and then the next 4 years you do jack squat?
Exactly.
Again,
I think 3. I think 4 you'd probably win it all.
Man,
so if you
get to the playoff 5 years in a row,
Yeah.
You are one of the elite programs in the United States, and you are to be dealt with accordingly, and you are to be cheered on accordingly. You are one of the very best programs in the United States. I'm not saying anybody can go on a run, but they can't. And I would also say this. If we look at the numbers in 2029, any of the teams that have 5 playoff wins over that stretch, they're going to be an elite program too. So they're both pretty good gauges of how good the program is. But getting there 5 years in a row would be a really wonderful accomplishment.
That's generating discussion, sparked by our great friends over at Cummins. Follow them on Instagram. It's totally free. Cummins Lifestyle, all one word. All right, back at it. Riser Mike, Corey, next season, the implication of helmet communication. Do you think Norvell will use it occasionally to catch defenses off guard? Example, run plays while the defense is trying to get in position. I read that it shuts off at the 15-second mark of the time clock. He's a very good at game planning and has been outstanding using all the tools available to him to create an advantage. I see this as another tool that he could use in his arsenal. How would you guys approach this? And do you believe that he will, in fact, devise plans to take full advantage of this?
I have a question about the actual machinations of it. So wouldn't it make more sense because you get a better view from up top? Because you can talk to the quarterback all the way up until, what'd you say, 15 seconds?
Yes.
So if you line up, if you get on the line of scrimmage at 30 seconds on the play clock or 28 seconds, which most teams do this day and age, that means you have 13 seconds to diagnose the defense. Not just you can call the play as soon as the guy got tackled out of bounds, and the play clock starts at 40. Okay, red trap 69Y. That takes half a second. But once you get the players lined up, you could have 8 to 10 seconds to look at the defense, to see what defense they're in, to see if a safety looks like he's cheating down, whatever you might do. But Norvell won't have the best angle for that because he's on the sideline. Now, he calls the plays, so I assume he's going to be doing most of the talking to DJ.
Yes.
But if he's on the headset with DJ, does that mean he can't be on the headset with Tokars?
No, I think he'll be hearing Tokars. He'll be speaking. Like he's got a button on his little remote.
Is that true? Is that how that works? You have a button for the quarterback and a button for the
It's got to be. Yeah, because you have to be able to communicate with your staff. And those things that you see clipped onto their belts, those I think are like traffic control. It's like, all right, like I can hit this button, I can talk to the booth. I can hit this button and talk to Alex, who's on the sideline with me. So I would imagine he's probably listening to Tony and he's speaking to DJ because he doesn't need to speak to Tony. Like Tony's like telling him what he's seeing, and he's like, all right, DJ, this is what we're going to do right here. But so I'm sure he probably has. I'm sure he also has the option too, though, to like cut the microphone to DJ and be like, Tony, you're talking too much or something, or like, hurry up, spit it out. I'm sure.
No, I got it. But what if Tony sees that the safety's blitzing? Could he then say, hey, Mike, the safety's coming,
Yeah.
And then Mike switches over and tells DJ, hey, look out for that safety?
Yeah, with 15 seconds left, yeah.
All right, okay. I do think it'll be a help for sure. Yeah. I don't know how much. I assume they do that kind of stuff anyway. I think you'd see Norvell a lot look at the defense and then change something or make some motion towards Jordan Travis. He did that a lot too. So I think it's going to be a lot of that. It's just going to be instead of having to do stupid signals or hold up a sign with my bald head on it or something, he can actually say, tell DJ what he wants to run, I guess, I assume. But I don't – it's hard to know how much of a difference it'll make till we see it in action. But I want to know the communication that happens between plays. How much does Tony talk at all? Or does he talk after the 15 second, below 15 seconds? I do want to know because that seems like a lot. That seems like an air traffic controller. It's a lot of stuff going on. All right, Tony, what do you see? Okay, hold on a second. I'll be right back with you. DJ, we like this. Tony, what? Okay, DJ, like I could see a lot of that happening maybe.
Man,
but I guess they do it in the NFL, and it doesn't.
Yeah,
it's
no,
not an issue.
I think it's just Tony talking to Mike, and because it's like, all right, we're about to snap the ball. Like, we want to get the ball snap with 20 seconds left or whatever. And he's like, all right, safety's, cheating up. I mean, it's just like, DJ, go long.
And also, who's checking the helmets to see that DJ just can't hear all the communication?
Well, I mean, it's a conference thing. I think they're going to, there's only one helmet. It's not like everybody has. There's only one helmet they have to inspect.
But I'm saying, like, who really knows that DJ can't hear what Tony's saying to Mike? Like, only Mike's allowed to talk to DJ. All right, well, how are you going to police that?
Stop being such a cynic, Corey.
I'm just saying, you're looking for all – hey, Michigan got to win a national championship, and we all know what they did last year. Right. Florida State should just be like, whoever wants to talk to DJ, this is the channel. It's channel 3.2. Just you could talk to DJ. Tell him how much you love him.
I was going to love when like somebody at Cal Poly partners up with his buddy at Southern Cal or something, and it's like, all right, man, this is how you can hack into it.
Yeah.
And you can just use your cell phone and be like, hey, man, you're doing awesome.
That's right. Yeah.
You know?
Anybody want to talk to DJ during the game?
Yeah. I couldn't find the answer for this, but Riser Mike was also asking, when is it turned on? I would think it probably cuts out, obviously, when there's 15 seconds and less to the snap, and I would think it probably doesn't turn on until the clock gets restarted for the next play.
I would think as soon as the play clock starts up.
Yeah.
But how's that timed? That's even a better question. Who times that? Like you're telling me there's some sort of chip in the helmet?
No, they've got comms people. I mean, the conference is going to have comms people.
So
like,
they're going to they're going to be
yes.
they're going to cut it in and then cut it out. Okay, all right.
Let's see what we got here. Bourbon is your friend, Aslan. Even though you dislike my posts, I'm still glad you're alive. Please get your blood work done. Skinny people can get diabetes. All right, man. I did. I haven't got my results back, but I did just because you said so.
Okay.
And everybody go do it, man. Come on, y'all. If you got insurance, once a year, man. Although you have to wait for. So you obviously didn't have a great experience with my other doctor, so I'm in the market for a new doctor, Corey. I go see new doctor. My appointment's at 3:30. I get there at 3:15, 15 minutes before as instructed. Right. Man, I did not get seen by the doctor until 5:03 p.m., which included me sitting in the exam room by myself for like 47 minutes.
That's always the best. Did you
like,
peek out to make sure they knew you were still there? I've done that before.
I almost did. I'm like, are they all going to go home? Like, it's after 5. They might be like, hey, we're all going home. And then I'm just going to be stuck in this office by myself. But there was a really charismatic guy. He was really nice. I'm like, all right, maybe I'll stick around. He's like, I'm really sorry. It won't be like this. And then I think people lie a lot when they say they know, like, me or Warchant. Like, so what do you do? I'm like, I cover Floor Safe for a website. What's the website? I'm like, warchant.com. I'm like, Oh yeah, I know you. And I'm like, you don't, and it's fine, man. Can we just get out of here, man? I've been here for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we persevere. Mark, our guy, M. Adam CZ, on the Tribal Council this week, which you all should be a subscriber to warchant.com because you can get on the Tribal Council. You can mix it up with the fans. Amen. A poster asked Corey what we should fear the most about the upcoming football season. It was hard to think of something. Here's a summary of my response. Obviously, big expectations, 19-game win streak at one point. That's Jameis Jimbo-type numbers. Obviously, the concern is a bunch of new guys taking leadership roles. And what the offense can do, the defense is going to be strong. The X factor would be the running game, he thinks. He sees a relentless physical attack with a deeper offensive line and a talented, strong running back room. But let's not forget, Jordan's running skill was hardly a factor in 23. DJ is going to be able to pick up tough yards on the short one. So I don't fear anything, but if I had to pick something, ACC officiating and having another year of the injury bug with big contributors.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would I think if you're talking about the on-field play, my biggest fear, obviously, the flight to Ireland and back. So there's 2 flights that I'm worried about. That's my biggest fear going into the football season. But aside from that, aside from my own personal demons, I would say if DJ looks like 2021-2 DJ, I don't think that's going to happen.
You're good with last year's DJ, though.
I'm perfectly good with last year's DJ. And theoretically, he should be better. I think he's going to get better coaching this year than he got last year, and I think he's going to have better players around him. So all that should matter. But if he's just average or mediocre, which I think he was for most of 21 and 22, that would be my biggest concern. That would be my biggest fear. I still think you can win games with that. I mean, Clemson got all the way to number 2 in the country in 2022 with him being kind of average. Then they lost to South Carolina, and then he left and went to Corvallis.
Wow, they were number 2 when they lost that game?
I'm almost positive. I know they were top 5. And look, man, their biggest game of that year was at Florida State. They beat Wake. Wake was good that year. They beat them. Remember, they beat them in crazy overtime.
Oh yeah,
like 54-48. And then the next week they beat Florida State, and that was DJ's best ever game. So they won the games they were supposed to, and they
lost to Notre Dame. They were number 4. They lost to Notre Dame that year. They were 8th when they lost to South Carolina.
Okay, but they got up to number 4.
Yeah.
So I was wrong, but I knew they got up pretty high that year.
Yeah.
So. You would take playing Florida number 8 in the country this year. If you're number 8, that my point being, DJ got them to a top 10, top 5-ish ranking even when he wasn't incredible. So, but if he looks like that, if he looks confused, if he doesn't look like he has a grasp of the offense, that would be my concern because you're not going to be able to beat everybody like you did Louisville in the ACC championship game. This defense will be good. It's not going to be dominant, I don't think, because I don't think that's normal. I don't think what we saw at the end of last year is normal. You are going to have to score some points. You're going to have to put up 30. And that would be my biggest fear is if that just doesn't happen. Maybe the receivers don't take a step. The running backs aren't as good as we think. But my fears, weirdly, I think lie on the offensive side of the ball.
Yes, for sure. I don't know who has had a dominant defense. Is like Georgia the only program that's probably had a dominant defense in the last 5 years?
You mean every year?
Yeah. Well, not every year, but just like the last. I don't know, like the last 10 years. We're now outside the Florida State winning the national title in 2013. That was a dominant defense.
Yeah, I would say like Florida State, Michigan. Georgia, Michigan. They've had very good. They've had very good defenses here recently, the last 3 to 5 years. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. But what we saw at the end of last year was so special that it wasn't appreciated. Honestly, clearly, I think. You're not going to have Fisk and Verse just tormenting people. People are going to score on you. They're going to move the ball. They're going to keep the ball away from you. That is going to happen. Can you answer? Will you have the offensive firepower without a Keon, without a Johnny, without a Jordan, the Jaheim? If you don't have Trey, all those guys you had last year, if you can't fill those shoes and you're only averaging, if you take a step back and average 28 points or 29 points, that's where I'd be a real worry that you could have just an okay season, like a 7-win season or an 8-win season, and not an 11-win season. Yeah.
Speaking of fear, NYC Nole, wake up, gents. Aslan, glad to hear your buddy Mike's a great swimmer. Wake up wouldn't have been the same without you, but since
that's true.
Since you brought it up, it got me thinking. On this current coaching staff outside of Norvell, who would you guys hate to lose? For me, it's Tokars. Of course, this answer would change year to year, but I think he would be too important with DJ coming into form, we hope, this season.
Yeah, but I also think you're going to lose him. I would say, him or Atkins would be the two guys. And Atkins, you have lost for 3 games. But, yeah, Fuller, too. Let's not sleep on what he's done. That defense in 2020 was awful, but he didn't have any really good players. He had 3 on the whole that side of the ball. As he's been able to teach this defense more and more, and gotten his guys ingrained into the system, and thanks to Norvell, he's been given a lot of good players. That defense has been one of the top 20 in the country the last 2 years, probably.
Yeah.
So,
I was trying to think. I feel like it's, Alex was the flavor of the week 4 years ago. So now it hasn't gone sour, but it's kind of fallen out of, not favorites. It's fallen to the back of people's minds. Because I was going to say Adam Fuller, because of what he's done with this defense. But you're like, hey man, he did have Braden Fisk and Jared Verse and Renardo Green and Jarian Jones. All these guys started to emerge for him that he didn't have in 2020. So the only consistent that's been I don't want to say decent. The only thing that's been steady since Mike Norvell's been here is that the offensive line has always been at least good, right? And Alex Atkins did not inherit a great offensive line, but he was able to figure it out to probably have given that offense a shot if Jordan Travis would have settled into the starting quarterback job and roll earlier than them sticking with James Blackman. So Alex is the one guy that we've kind of maybe taken for granted now at this point, because it's that segment was so bad. He got it fixed, and it was all right, let's move on and see if we can fix the defense. Because Adam Fuller, it hasn't looked all that great until the last year and a half when these guys really started emerging. And I don't want to take that away from. I love Adam. I think he's done a great job. It's one thing to have great players, but you need to also develop them and put them in the right positions to succeed. But Alex is the only guy that even when he had bad groceries, he still made a pretty good meal. And now that he's got better groceries, we're seeing a really good meal.
Yeah, I agree. I would push back a little on the Fuller thing, saying it's just been the last year and a half, because after the what is it? Whatever it was, the halftime of the Louisville game in 21.
Yeah, 21. You're right.
That's when the defense seemed to really find itself. And again, it wasn't great because they didn't have great players. The Jared Verse wasn't on the field. They only had one Jermaine Johnson. No. They still had some not great players, but it wasn't a sieve. It didn't give up. It stopped giving up 500 yards or 35 points and a half. It made it hard to score. Not impossible. And there were some some stinkers. The Florida game in 22 was a stinker. The bowl game against Oklahoma was a stinker. But by and large, since that fourth game in 2021, I don't know what that is, 21, 35. It's like been 35 games. They've been pretty darn hard to score on for like 30 of them. Like, you're going to score. It's college football. It's built for the offenses. But they make it hard to score. You have not watched and seen like a dude just running free, which they were not coordinated well in 2020. I feel like they've been coordinated very well since halftime of that Louisville game.
We're well coordinated because we are in tune. We are dialed in. We are focused because of Vitamin Energy and the Focus Plus. Head to vitaminenergy.com and use the promo code WARCHANTBOGO. That's WARCHANT, BOGO. You can buy a box of Vitamin Energy Focus and get one free. Or you can get a variety pack for free when you buy the Focus. Or maybe you want your immune system to be a little bit stronger. Maybe you want your mood to be a little bit improved. Maybe you want your workouts to be just a little bit more of a pump. Those are all options. All over at vitaminenergy.com. Noles behind this, setting up this promo code, hooking you folks up with the promo code WARCHANTBOGO, WARCHANT, BOGO. The Vitamin Energy Workout Plus, the number one pre-workout shake. Or not, I should call it shake. Shot, rather. It's clinically tested, clinically proven. They're behind this stuff, 100%. They're getting it clinically tested in a study with like over 14 days with randomly selected people. And then they're also standing behind it, giving you it for free, so you'll try it and like it and tell your friends. What you waiting for? Shake it and take it. vitaminenergy.com. Use that promo code WARCHANTBOGO. WARCHANT, B-O-G-O. Island Chief Corey, wake up, he says. Postseason play is upon us. That's right. Baseball later this morning. High leverage situations will be happening all over the place. Here's my question. Which high leverage situation is the toughest? Championship is decided on this singular outcome. You make the play, you win. You don't make the play, you lose. 3 options. Here we go. Which is the toughest?
Okay.
1, you're down by 2. You get off a contested 3-pointer with time running out. 2, you're down by 2, 54-yard field goal with a running clock. Just enough time to get the kickoff. So I wonder if this is like bucket brigade where like you're running the guy out there.
Yeah.
3, bottom of the 9th, down by 1, runners on 2nd and 3rd, 2 outs, full count. Ooh, I'm sweating. I'm sweating just thinking about all these.
Yeah, none of those are great. I mean, there's so much context. Like who's up, who's taking the contested 3, who's kicking that field goal.
The best in all options. It's Aguayo, it's JD Drew, it's Trent Forrest, or I don't know, T-Man.
I would think, this is just me being a mathematical guy. I would think a college basketball player, we're assuming college, right?
Yes.
A college basketball player taking a 3-pointer with a hand in his face is probably around 25, like well contested, is probably 20 to 25% make.
Yeah, sounds fair.
I would think a college kicker running out onto the field to snap the ball, having everybody having to run up to the line to snap it and kick it as the clock is winding down, a 54-yarder. In this day and age,
it might actually be like 20%.
I would say I was thinking more than that.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe 40%.
All right.
So baseball, though, the chances of getting a hit, 2nd, 3rd with 2 outs.
Full count, yeah.
Even your best hitter, James Tibbs, is getting a hit 38% of the time. Now, he does get on base 50% of the time. Yeah. So I think your best odds are still that. I think your best odds are is the baseball, right?
I don't know, man. I feel like
I feel like that's a contested 3. I'm thinking that's going to be that to me is the toughest.
Do you want to be Florida State up by 2 and Georgia's running their kicker out to get a 54-yarder off? Or do you want to be, down by 2 having to make that? Or like, do you want Florida State to be up by 1 run in the bottom of the 9th and be in that situation? Or would you, that's the way I'm kind of thinking about it. And I would feel probably the least comforted bottom of the 9th, probably. I feel like that would go wrong. I feel like that probably...
You're talking about if Florida State was on defense.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can score from third without just getting a hit. Wild pitch, error, balk. There's other ways to score. So, yeah, I would say you probably the defense would rather be either contesting the 3 or watching that field goal team run out.
See, I was wondering.
We spent a lot of time on that question. It's a hard question. It's a question we've never been anywhere close to asked before.
Yeah. It might be a generating discussion question had he not already won like a few weeks ago, Island Chief. We're trying to spread out the love, everybody.
Right,
so
right.
That's how we do it. All right, let's get to the last couple here. Seminole Carol, wake up, Warchant. We are turning the corner to approaching 13 weeks away from the start of the football season. Here's my question. If either of you were to see Kirk Herbstreit in a pub or eating out in Ireland, what would you do or say to him? I know I would have the waitress send over a plate with a napkin sitting on it saying, "Eat crow." Then I would make sure the waitress pointed to me so Kirk would see me smiling as I yelled, "Go Seminoles, 13-0. I would, of course, thank and tip the waitress generously.
I would do the same thing, I guess, but my 4-letter word after eat wouldn't be crow. No, I wouldn't say anything to him. I don't think it's my place. I wouldn't say anything to him. I'm not going to pick a fight with him or provoke him anyway. I wouldn't say like, "Hey, Kirk, nice to see you," but I wouldn't tell him that he's an idiot.
See, I would.
Because I don't think he's an idiot. His viewpoint was idiotic. Let me rephrase that. That doesn't mean he's an idiot. He had an idiotic perspective back in December.
I'd go up to him. I'd slap him on the arm. Like, "Hey, man, you're catching hell from everybody, aren't you? I don't think you're that bad, though." And I would just walk away. That's all.
That's all he would need to hear.
Yeah,
he'd be on cloud 9 after that.
Yeah, I don't want to excuse his sins, but at the same time, I just want to be like, man.
You know what I would do is I would go look up his final stats against Michigan in the last game he played and just say those to him. Let's see, 7 out of 17 for 91 yards and a pick. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just guessing Kirk Herbstreit's numbers. I would just keep saying that over and over. I guess quarterback play doesn't matter that much, does it, Kirk? Because your team still won. Stuff like that.
But what if they didn't? Like, what if he played lousy and they lost?
I'm sure they did.
Proving his point,
No, I guess Ohio State back when he played, didn't they used to beat Michigan all the time?
No, I think like John Cooper. John Cooper kept losing.
He couldn't. Yeah, he couldn't beat them. You're right. Yeah. So he probably lost. Good point.
But yeah, I'm sure he'll be well insulated. I don't think he'll be out with the commoners. I think he'll be in his bus with his dog.
Correct.
Well, I wonder if they'll mail the bus out for him, like the Madden Cruiser. Just put it on a boat or something. Naked_Nole, wake up, summer blockbuster scenario staring at you. Following the Boston College game September 2nd, you were granted access to interview one player of starting caliber on the team under the Unconquered statue on an overcast day. During the interview, lightning strikes the Unconquered statue, and instead of death or horrible disfigurement, a Freaky Friday situation occurs. You switch bodies with the player you were interviewing. In order to return to your original body, you must win the upcoming football game against Memphis as the player. You can tell no one that you swap bodies. What player are you swapping bodies with? And what is your strategy to ensure the football win in order to return to your original body? Also, what advice are you giving to the player for them to live your life as a podcaster, writer, videographer, and editor? Does this have to be the question now, Corey? I didn't screen all the questions, but like, is this the winner?
No, but that's a really good question.
Okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot there. It's a lot to unpack. The first inclination would be just pick somebody pick a walk-on that won't play, and that won't have any impact.
But he says of starting caliber. But
it's got to be a starting caliber, and why would I be interviewing a walk-on that doesn't play? So I would say it's got to be Master Motto, right? Like
you just want his little involvement in the outcome of the game.
Yes, I don't want to be touched. Like I could be like, yeah, let me be Patrick Payton.
Marvin Jones Jr. It's Memphis, man. Even if Marvin Jones doesn't get home at all in that game, you're still probably beating Memphis.
Probably, but
I would love to feel what it's like to be 6'5", like 260 or whatever he is, man.
we should just go for broke and say DJ and just whip it around the lot.
No, see, there's a possibility, though. Possibility.
Yeah, I know. What about Morlock? So
Okay,
I feel like
okay.
if I transfer into Morlock's body, whatever he is, 6'6", 255, I'll be able to stay in front of guys. They won't use me a ton. It's just like straight pass pro anyway, or run blocking. But I think I can push guys a little bit with that strength. And then also, I don't think I will have that. Now, look, Chris Thompson will be like, Kyle, what was that? What are you doing? When I run a route and I don't turn around, the ball hits me in the back of the head, or I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. No, that's not a good answer. He's too involved. It's got to be Master Mono, because we'd have to learn the entire playbook and what it means and what each set is, like what each formation is. We'd be swimming.
I don't think I've ever seen the movie. So like we would have no basis. Like we just get the body. We don't get the brain.
Basically, yes, you were a 40-year-old in a 20-year-old's body, but you're living his life. Okay. So you're supposed to know all this stuff that he knows.
Yeah, I'll just keep rushing off the edge, and JP will keep yelling at me. But coach was trying to make a play.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know, man. I can't imagine the terminology is that difficult. So we'd be like, all right, like you're going to have to set the edge on here. Like, I get an idea of what set the edge is.
But I don't think they say that. I don't think it's like, hey, Marvin, you set the edge right here. I think that's known when the play call comes in, or when the formation is handed. They do the hand signals for the formation.
Yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, we're supposed to, we're getting a base call, and we're looking at what their lineup in, and that dictates it.
I think what you do, honestly, is you go to, let's say DJ Lundy is the captain of the defense. You go to him before the game and like, dog, I don't know what's going on with me, but I can't remember any of the play calls. But I'm going to be out here and I'm grinding and I'm playing. So please kind of give me a hint on every play what I'm supposed to be doing. Rush the passer or come outside. Do I have the edge? Am I supposed to go with the back if he flares out? Just give me a hint before every play, please, DJ.
Well, he says that you can tell knowing that you swap bodies.
That's what I'm saying. You don't tell DJ you swap bodies.
All right.
You're just saying you're having a bad day memory-wise.
Okay.
And you need some help. Like, I need some help, man. Just give me somehow the playbook doesn't make sense anymore. I need some help.
All right. I think we made it to the end, Corey. The last one here. As I'm scrolling up to make sure I didn't lose anybody. We had a big number of replies, but then I jumped in here and realized it was Knox Knoll going crazy at 2 a.m, man.
Right.
Keep living your life, by the way, buddy. Loving it.
Yep.
Loving it. This is a long one. WAC 169, WAC 169. All caps. If you don't want to read this because it's too long, that's cool. These thoughts just keep running through my mind. I just wonder if I'm the only one that thinks this. It's 3 graphs. Let me get through it, Corey.
All right.
It appears to me, WAC 169, that the Big Ten is wanting to play nice with the SEC, which in my opinion is one of the dumbest things they could possibly do. Greg Sankey will stick the knife in your back as he is shaking your hand, ask the commissioner whose birthday party he went to, and then the next day started going after Texas and Oklahoma. If the Big Ten were truly, truly smart, they would offer several ACC teams the option. 1, so they could expand their footprint to the South. 2, the ACC falls apart because 10 teams leave and vote to disband the ACC. 3, the Big Ten breaks off from the NCAA and becomes a corporation with its own laws, rules on player compensation. Keep in mind that by dissolving the ACC, it takes a lot of ESPN inventory away, leaving them a bunch of dead air time in the fall. Not good for them. I know people are going to say that the ACC sucks, etc., but you don't have to add all killers in football, do you? I can see Florida State, Clemson, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Virginia Duke. Then Fox gets Louisville, Pitt, NC State, good deals in the Big 12 since they are the ones broadcasting the Big 12 games. And whammo, no more ACC. It's so obvious, I cannot believe that it hasn't been talked about. You killed 2 birds with 1 stone, Corey. 1, you get all the ACC schools out for free. 2, you destroy a good bit of ESPN's programming, and you become the most watched conference because you have instituted a new way to do player compensation outside of the NCAA. You now get the best recruits and the best coaches. I honestly cannot believe I am the only one that thinks this. Hell, maybe I am.
I guess I stopped. I wasn't listening hard enough at the close enough at the. What's the initial idea? What's the game plan? What's the blueprint here?
Just you're the Big Ten. You just pilfer the ACC to ruin the SEC and the ESPN. You go into the South.
But I thought he kept saying the ACC. There at the end, that last paragraph, he kept saying, I'm the only one that doesn't see this. The ACC would be this and that.
Yeah, you get the ACC schools out. Like you disband the ACC, you blow it up. Like this is the way forward.
So that's not good for the ACC.
Well, it's good for us. It's good for Florida State. That's
right, I know, but I was under the impression he was talking about how to save the ACC.
No, this is him just not playing nice with the SEC.
Got it.
If you're the Big Ten, if you're the Big Ten, if you're Tony Petitti, this is the Tony Petitti playbook.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't think you're the only one thinking that. Maybe to that extent, where you're adding the Georgia Techs of the world. But yeah, I think we all think that that.
But doesn't the ACC have to blow up? Like nobody can do anything from the outside to blow up the ACC. Either Florida State and Clemson's lawsuits and then maybe other ones create that, or the ACC decides, the ESPN gives them some sort of you know what I'm saying? Like Tony Petitti, the Big Ten can't just be like, all right, we're taking Florida State, everybody. Because right now Florida State's in this conference, and I'm sure the ACC and ESPN would sue and probably win right now.
Yeah. I mean, but yes, I think that Florida State obviously is a very valuable brand. I think if you add those, like if you could add multiple teams, not just Florida State, I think you would do it because, Virginia, North Carolina, those are attractive markets. The fan bases aren't attractive. The football programs aren't attractive, but there are a lot of TV sets in those markets. Georgia Tech, too, with Atlanta. So, I don't know. I don't know.
And then like Texas and OU left, and they were under contract, but then they had to pay their way out of it. But I think they ended up. But
their contract. That's the thing, Aslan. Their contract was only for another year or two.
Yeah,
not 12.
Right.
So that's the big difference.
But they're Big 12 schools, and that's part ESPN property, but it is still part Fox property. I guess that's the weird thing, right? Like, the ACC is strictly ESPN. And the CW, of course.
Don't forget the CW. Yeah. And don't forget Swafford's kid. Chad Swafford. Does he run the CW or Raycom? What does he do now?
It's funny you say that. I was listening to a podcast. The Big Ten released their tax records. And the number one paid employee for the Big Ten was Jim Delaney, who's been retired for 5 years now.
Yeah. And
this, I guess the entity that I think Weatherford is doing his private capital thing through, it's based in Delaware and only has one employee, and it's Jim Delaney's son.
Yeah, that's great. It's not at all weird. Not at all weird. Not at all questionable. Just normal business. Normal business.
All right, that wasn't too long of a program, but we're done, everybody. I think Jeff's back. Jeff lost his dog.
Yeah.
Tell me thinking about him. And, I've got this feral cat now, Corey, and when she's not there, I get a little bit bummed out. I'm like, why aren't you out front of my house today waiting for me to give you food every morning? I can't imagine like having, I'm never a big pet guy. I was never a big pet guy, but if you have them actually in your house, for like years and they're there all the time and then they're no longer there, like it's got to be pretty brutal, man. So
agreed.
I've developed empathy in that regard. Mm-hmm. So I think he'll be back today with the show for you folks. If not, the Noles are playing baseball. We'll have a live thread going on over on the FSU baseball forum on warchant.com, and we'll have reaction from Link and the team afterwards. Fingers crossed they win this game. They advance to the semifinals. And I'm going to go ahead and say if they beat Virginia, they're going to lock up a top 8 national seed.
Okay. All right, Aslan.
Stone cold lead pipe block.
Yep, make it happen.
Lead pipe lock, everybody. All right, that's a wrap for us. Thanks for listening. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Stay connected to warchant.com, the ultimate Seminoles sports source. Subscribe, thumbs up, 5-star rating and review as well. It's been Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.